Flirty and Nerdy. Today I have my former psychiatric nurse practitioner here, Monique, and it is so exciting because I absolutely adore Monique, and I'm sure you all will too. Monique has helped me through so much bullshit. Literally helped me get my diagnoses straight. You helped me with therapy sessions, talk sessions. You helped me overcome a really hard breakup, and you could probably attest to this too. I was a completely different person when we met. You asked me how I was. I was literally crying. I could barely speak to you. And now it's like, every time that I went to go see you, it was just kind of like hanging out with a friend, and I'm really happy about that, and you made it so comfortable for me. So I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today to talk about mental health and stigmas and everything under the sun. And so, Monique, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so happy you're here. And would you like to give a little introduction about yourself and what you do?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. And then, I just want to reiterate, before we go further, so yes, we're more like friends now. So we're not in that kind of patient-client relationship anymore kind of thing. But I really wanted to touch on something you said in your introduction of me helping you type thing. First of all, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.
But secondly, I want you to know that it really is mainly it's you. You're the one who helped yourself get through it. Okay. Cause doing all of that work, I didn't do that work. You did that work. So I just want to really commend you for that and kind of turn it around, because this is something that you should be proud of. You should take ownership of that, because you're rocking it. You did this. You helped yourself through your stuff. So
yeah, thank you. Well, a lot of it was also help too, because I mentioned before on my podcast that I'm taking antidepressants, and I never was into medication or anything like that. And so you kind of helped bring the stigma of medication back to the norm for me, because then I was able to actually feel more comfortable taking medication, feel more comfortable feeling like this is okay, this is for me, this is what I need to do. And because of that journey, I feel so much clearer. All the fog is away.
Aww,
I feel
I
feel like I could be more logical in my thinking. My emotions aren't overpowering, and just I feel more myself than I've ever felt before from seeing you the first time. Because the first time I saw you, like I said, I was incoherent. You could not understand a single word I was saying because I was so distraught.
I think that's really great that, you're able to, kind of see that sometimes, and I don't want to put, I'm one of those people, I don't, I'm not when needs to be on meds are something that, have to be long-term or anything like that. That's something that's really, really important to me. It's not totally necessary in every single case, but you kind of just weigh your pros and cons. And sometimes we do have, deficiencies, and sometimes we need to, increase certain neurotransmitters to kind of help us. Sorry, I'm trying to get it.
You're really good.
Sometimes it's genetic, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes we kind of need that boost of something. It might be short term, it might be long term, but it's really up to every individual person. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really great that your mindset changed on it. Mm-hmm. I think for me and for me specifically, I let a lot of my clients know that I myself take antidepressant medication.
Yeah, I want to talk to you more about that. That's a great segue, because I wanted to ask you what your journey is like, how you got into taking antidepressants, why you yourself are going through this. Well, you don't have to get into the why, but kind of what your processing was and how it helped yourself. If that makes sense. Because
that totally makes sense.
About me, and I don't know that much about you.
So basically, a little bit about, I guess, my history with that. I've struggled with anxiety and depression since I was a teenager. It is a genetic thing in our family. So for me, of course, when I'm a teenager, you don't really, it's really hard to verbalize what you have. You don't feel good, right? But it's hard to be this is depression, this is anxiety, this is what have you, right? And it especially like from like teens to adulthood and everything like that, everything is changing in your body and your brain is still not fully formed and everything's kind of in like going on the fritz, right? So it is kind of hard to even like recognize that in yourself sometimes. So first time I noticed something was kind of not right. I was about 16 years old and I went to a therapist, a psychiatrist of my own who diagnosed me with depression and anxiety. I thought I had just depression. I was like, I don't have anxiety. I don't know what that is. Like, no, I don't. But yeah, so the medication route, I think I've been like on 6 different trials of antidepressants, on and off throughout the years. But for me, I understand like side effects suck, right? To me, it's kind of really eye-opening to like trial different things and to kind of keep people hopeful that something else, while this medication might not work, something else may work for you. So I really like try to keep like that hope instilled in people too, because it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, you're going to be anxious forever. I'm going to be depressed forever, anything like that. And then this is just a side note real quick too. Everything I'm saying today, like this isn't any, recommendations for treatment or anything like that. It's more just kind of talking about our lives. Cause if you do feel like you're struggling or anything like that, definitely go speak with your doctor. So, okay. Just want to put that out there.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that you tried 6 different medications, which makes sense because for me, you're like, if one doesn't work, that's okay. You could try other ones. It'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
I have one right now that works great for me. I haven't had really too much issues with it. But I do know some friends and some people have had different medications that they had to try, things like that. So coming from you saying that, it's part of like a normal thing.
Yeah. And then there's always going to be too like a period of time where your body has to acclimate to the medication. Some people are just like incredibly lucky and they can take a medication from day one. They have no side effects. They just like none of the adverse reactions, I'd say. So like, and I'll get into like some of the common ones here, but some people can just do that. They're fine, no problems, done. Unfortunately, most people are not like that. Right. And it definitely takes a little bit of time to kind of get our bodies acclimated to the med.
Okay, so what type of symptoms and side effects does the medication provide when you first start it? Because I know for me what mine were, but what are the most common for people that need to get onto this that they don't know, that they're nervous about it?
That they're nervous. Okay. Yeah. So it of course is going to depend on the different psychiatric medications, right? And that's something that, when you do start a medication, I very, very much highly encourage whoever to research the medication they're taking, ask their provider about it, ask what is going to be the main symptoms, what they should expect, right? But for instance, with your basic like SSRIs, your serotonin reuptake inhibitors, that's going to be, you're going to have things like some people could have like excessive sweating, particularly at nighttime. Yeah. In rare cases, some people might feel a little bit more anxiety at the beginning. That kind of tends to taper off after a couple days. A common one is fatigue, which is why we normally we recommend, and it's completely dependent on everybody's body chemistry too and on the medication itself, but we'll normally say, hey, start taking this at the nighttime first and see how you're doing. But so those are some main ones. You can have a little bit of dry mouth. You can have some dizziness. A big one, unfortunately, is GI symptoms. So
what
like
is GI?
So GI is going to be your like gastrointestinal, so your stomach. So a common one can be nausea, feeling like you're going to like dry heave, things like that. The good thing is these problems tend to resolve over time. I don't want to give you a specific time frame. I will say with me specifically, when I take a medication, normally it'll take me about 5 or so days to get adjusted. And then I feel significantly better. But the nausea was pretty brutal.
Oh, man. But you also feel like lightheaded and stuff too sometimes.
Did not happen to me, fortunately. Okay. So that was a plus. We do have medications that we can give to kind of help through those the initial adjustment period. But honestly, I really usually stress to my patients, like, I know it sucks. I've been there. I'm with you. Push through it if you can, as long as there's no serious life-threatening reactions. And I think like it actually is helpful if you know that, hey, I'm not feeling good, but this is more than likely something that's going to resolve. It's more than likely a very short-term thing if I can just deal with it. Normally, you'll start to know relatively quickly, too, that the side effects will start to kind of decrease in severity. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And so my other question, I guess, is how much medication can one person handle? Like, can one person have 1 or 2 and be okay? Or can they have, like, 6 and still be, like, functioning? Like, I don't, because I've been really nervous about taking, like, more medication than I need to. Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm just taking 2. I'm, like, depression and anxiety, but anxiety is very rare for me. Mm-hmm. And I know some people could take like up to 6 or 10 or whatever, but
so are you common? Sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, okay. I was just
so
curious.
Are you talking about like dosage wise? Or are you talking about like different medications?
Yeah, like different medication types. Like, because I just kind of thought of it. I'm like, I wonder how much one person could handle if they need to handle that. If it's a possibility for them. So
yeah, there's not going to be a specific number, right? And as far as dosages too, that's completely dependent on our body chemistry and on the person. We really rely on a subjective account. So meaning what our clients are telling us specifically is happening. Because psych, it's a little bit different. Like if you break a bone, if you break an arm, you can see the arm healing. You can see where the break is. You can see what needs to be done. With this, it's a little bit different because I really rely on a firsthand account of what my patients are telling me they're feeling like. So, say they're struggling with depression. How severe is it? With this medication, are we getting a remission of symptoms? Are we only getting a partial remission of symptoms? Mm-hmm. Is the medication working well, but the side effects are just so awful that we don't want to continue it? Like, I really tailor any medication plan to the patient specifically. Okay. So yeah, I can't give a number, but basically what we do is we look at all the medications, including like, not just psychiatric medications, but your other medications too for any kind of medical problems. Mm-hmm. And we kind of, using our clinical judgment and kind of researching and putting our meds together, seeing what would be a safe and effective dose for each patient.
Got it. Okay.
I will say our main goal, or I don't want to speak for all NPs out there, but my main goal is to have people on the least amount of medications possible and at the lowest doses possible while still getting that complete remission of symptoms.
Okay. So, yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And like not everything too is necessarily like people have anxiety. We all have anxiety, right? Like it's a genetic thing. We would not be here without a little bit of anxiety.
Right.
So if your anxiety is manageable, if you're able to manage it without medications, then there's not necessarily a need for medications on that part. So it's kind of up to the person. Do you feel like this is affecting your quality of life? If your symptoms are affecting the quality of life, then maybe that kind of starts the conversation about medications and things like that. But it's not it's not necessarily something that is a requirement for everybody.
Okay.
So
that makes sense. Thank you so much for answering that.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry if I went kind of like on a tangent there, but
no, this is perfect. It's good to get to know like all this information because I'm like, I wonder how much like people could actually handle and how much people could take. And it's good to know that you try to have the least amount of medication someone to be on.
Yeah.
Just so like,
and then like say we're gonna do something to manage some different symptoms. Normally what we would do is we wouldn't throw like 5 different meds at somebody at once because A, that's very unsafe, and B, like how are we supposed to gauge which one's working while which one might be not effective versus which if there are any side effects, what they may be coming from, right? So a good approach is usually to like introduce one medication at a time too, to kind of gauge the reaction from the person taking them.
Okay, that's very smart way to go about it instead of all at once. So I have some questions.
Yeah.
One of them that I was thinking about is, okay, since we're on the topic of medication, if someone is addicted to alcohol, weed, or any other type of vice, are there medications to help them beat the addiction? Or is there like another way to go about it? Like, how does one handle that type of struggle? Because for me, I know I deal with like depression, anxiety, kind of more of mental type of issues. How can someone like with those, what like medication helps them type of thing? What would the steps be for that?
So of course too, it's going to depend on the severity of the addiction, right? And it's going to depend on how always the age of the person is going to come into play too. But also how serious and how long the addiction's been occurring for. So if somebody comes in with alcohol or, a lot with alcohol addiction or anything like that, specifically that one, we want to make sure that medically, like if they want to stop, how are we going to help them stop? Because specifically with alcohol, there can be some pretty serious unintended events if you just stop cold turkey and you've been drinking a very high amount for a long time, right? So yes, so we do have medications that help with cravings and things like that are pretty effective, but we also first check medical, right? So I guess going back to that alcohol thing, like if somebody stops alcohol cold turkey, they can be at risk for things like DTRs, or seizures. And so they would need to like kind of do a gentle step down approach to drinking the alcohol and more than likely go to a inpatient rehab facility to help kind of withdraw in a safe and monitored environment. Now, if there's somebody, and then aiding in recovery, yes, there are medications that have been proven, that have been scientifically studied and have shown evidence of really helping to kind of curb those addictions. So basically there's been a lot of evidence to show that a lot of these medications have helped people curb their cravings to whatever substance they might be addicted to. But what I typically recommend as far as addictions is we got to find out first, like medically, how, if there's some, like what's going on medically first before we kind of treat the psychiatric part of things.
Do you think there's always something psychiatric with addiction like that? Like why people are so addicted to things? Is it something in their brain chemistry that has that like light bulb, like, oh, I need to have this in my system? Like, does that question make sense?
Yeah. So I guess I'm going to go based on speaking on like what I've seen in practice and on what my experiences in clinical practice. But I normally, people who do become addicted to certain substances, I normally see that there's usually an underlying problem there. And I don't like using the word problem per se, but basically this is how they have managed to cope with the situation. So for instance, some people who might feel depressed a lot turn to alcohol to kind of help. They use it as a coping mechanism. So, or or other substances. And I don't want to say like this is the case for every single patient, but I do find that for the majority of patients, there's usually some kind of underlying goal that they're dealing with internally, and how they're coping with it might be through the use of certain substances.
Okay, so like say someone is addicted to alcohol and the underlying issue is depression. Would you suggest them getting onto antidepressants and that may help with the alcohol intake? Or is there like you said before, like going to inpatient housing and things like that?
So if we're gonna take a basic case here, like assuming this is something that's not like like a hyper severe case, I really recommend more than anything kind of addressing whatever trauma they might have experienced or whatever they're struggling with. And that I really don't this is where I kind of come off a little bit different, I feel like, than other people in my field, but that's when I push more towards psych. I'm not saying that medications don't have their place, because they definitely do. Sometimes we're not even able to get to that place of therapy until we have that type of medication to kind of allow us to be able to express the thoughts that we've been holding in. Like, medications definitely have their place, but at the end of the day, I really push for therapy, because therapy is something you have lifelong.
Right.
Therapy, I've said this before, therapy is something you always have those coping mechanisms. That's where you learn your coping mechanisms. That's where you learn how to manage and how to address what might be going on. Sometimes people might not even know why they feel sad or why they feel some type of way until they really speak with somebody in therapy and kind of get to the bottom of, was this something that happened recently? Was this something that happened when they were young? What have you? So you can't really work on fixing or work on addressing something when you don't really know what to address yet.
Right.
So I think therapy is really, really beneficial for that. And like I said, therapy is lifelong. You're always going to have those tools. So, if you're, in the middle of traffic and you're about to have a panic attack, and you might not necessarily have a medication right then and there, but you have your coping mechanisms. You have these strategies that you've been taught to really help address what you need addressed in that time.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I do agree therapy is very important, which is why I'm so thankful that I'm able to actually have those coping mechanisms and have those tools to use. Like, I don't turn to alcohol, which is, a good thing. It's just, I know it's common for people. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was more like just, I guess, my depression and anxiety kind of went hand in hand, and I was more towards food, I guess you could say, mm-hmm. is where I kind of found that comfort.
So everyone's gonna cope with their feelings and with their emotions in some type of way. Yeah. It can be 1,000 different things, right? But we're humans. We're going to use something to cope, right? Now it's just whether these coping mechanisms that we have are they beneficial to us, or are they maladaptive? So, a maladaptive thing would be something, like cutting, for instance. Right. It's more harmful, right? Mm-hmm. Something like, a breathing technique would be something that's more beneficial, but it's kind of up to that person to kind of choose like what works for them. Mm-hmm. And also how, I feel like some of these things, like, you can make, like, exercising is a really great one, but if there can be a point where you take that to the other extreme where it becomes more harmful than good, when there's like obsession and over exercising to the point that you're hurting your body, right? So it's basically finding the coping mechanism that works for you, and that's kind of like our job to help you find what would be beneficial and what would not harmful to the person, So
no, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. That definitely helped answer some questions. For people that are listening to this and you hear little dog patters around, it's sorry, it's my Gypsy, my baby. So I hope that doesn't bother you too much. But thank you so much for Monique for answering those questions for me and getting deep into kind of how psychotherapy helps one with things that they're struggling with. So I really appreciate that. And my last two questions is, how would you beat the stigma of going to see a psychotherapist in today's age? Because I know therapy is becoming more and more popularized. It's becoming more like, go see therapy is a good thing. Yeah. I know people are like, therapy is great, it will help you. And then there's some people that are like, why do you need to see a psychotherapist? Like, are you crazy? Like, how do you beat that crazy stigma? And then the last question is, what advice do you wish you could give yourself about being 30 when it comes to medications, when it comes to psychotherapy and therapy, because that is the topic of today. So
yeah. So to touch on that the first question, I noticed that, yes, fortunately, I do see that there's more of a positive change in today's, like, in the younger generation now. We're starting to kind of be more accepting of taking care of our mental health. Of course, there's still a lot of negative stigma around it, which, you know, I guess what I personally like suggest is kind of just really, you know, I don't even want to say suggest. What I personally like what I like to do is I like to speak about it. I like to bring it to the forefront of conversations, to make it something that's more comfortable to talk about. So a lot of times too, that's why I share, like, hey, yeah, I've taken this antidepressant in the past, or hey, I struggle with anxiety. I share my struggles because, like, it normalizes it a little bit. And of course, without delving into like the super personals or anything like that, it kind of, it allows me to like connect with my patients too on a different level, because sometimes when they're struggling with something, I've struggled with something similar, and they can kind of like feel better and relate a little bit better to somebody who's also been there.
Which I think is amazing, because with me finding out that you went through the same things, I found more comfort in you knowing that I could also benefit
to share those things. Yeah. And I think that's honestly, that's why I do it, because even myself personally, for the longest time, I was so ashamed of my diagnoses, and so fearful of telling anybody what I was struggling with. Right. And I'm not going to lie and say that it's totally fine now and I never struggle, because I do. But it's having that ability to kind of own it myself, and to kind of put it out there, and to let it be known and be told. I've noticed that, you know, a lot of other people are like, hey, I also share the same struggle. Like, you know, I feel for what you're going through. And I just kind of, I really think it helps kind of destigmatize things, if you will. So yeah.
I think it's awesome and very vulnerable for you to share with your patients that you are also on antidepressants and medication as well too, because then it makes them feel like, okay, it's for everyone. It's not just people like me, like professionals also take care of this.
Yeah.
In this way.
I don't like to think of, you know, like we're like, you know, like any kind of provider, like if you're going to see a cardiologist, that doesn't mean that like, for a heart problem, right? A heart doctor. It doesn't mean that doctor's never going to have heart problems. Like we are not some, this is a big thing to me that like really, really frustrates me in the system, is we're not above, or we're not some like I feel like we're unnecessarily glorified or like sought after, like sought to, like, I want to be like this person or whatever, or like almost like unnecessarily overly respected sometimes, because like we are human. We are still, we still struggle with, we still have our own struggles with our own mental health, our physical health, things like that. We're not immune to it because we're in the field, right? So yeah, I really put that out there, because that's a big thing for my patients. Like, I don't want them to think like, hey, like you come in here and I'm this perfect person or whatever, because I'm not. And I'm not, like anything that you tell me, like it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be like, I'm not going to sit there and judge you. I want to help. Like, that's what I'm there for. I'm not there to, you know, to cause you more stress in your life. I want to see what we can do and work together to really kind of help build up and kind of fix the struggles that you that anybody came in to initially seek. So
Thank you so much for that.
That was very tangential. I'm super sorry.
That was like amazing. No, that was honestly so good, and I'm so glad you saying that, because it's true. Like, people in the professional field are people.
Yeah,
and they're not some type of people that you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm so nervous to like talk to them because they really don't know what I'm going through. But it's good to know that they're people too, and they go through the same things that you go through, or different things even.
Yeah. Therapists still seek therapy from other therapists. You know? Psych providers still seek help from other psych providers. Like, it's something that, you know, because we know a little bit more about it, we're a little bit better versed on certain things, but that doesn't mean that we're immune to it. Doesn't mean that we're able to even catch it in ourselves sometimes. So yeah, I really want to put that out there. I know, like, I want to answer the 30 question, but I really want to put this out there too, because this is so important to me. When patients come in, if you're ever not satisfied with something that, or if you're uncomfortable with something that your provider or your doctor recommends, please ask why, ask the question, speak up, and, you know, really advocate for yourself. Because at the end of the day, we're not in your mind. You've got, and just like how, you know, you have to fight for yourself, because you're your own best friend. At the end of the day, you can be your own best friend, your own worst enemy. Speak up if you're not sure. I promise you, a good provider will take the time to address your concerns. Okay? So if there's something you're not comfortable with, let them know. Speak up. Ask questions, do the research. I'm not gonna say that might change the opinion of the provider, because you know, everybody's got their own different way of practicing, their own clinical opinions, their own way to keep, we want to keep everybody safe, right? But if there's something you're concerned about, I'd rather you tell me earlier rather than later. Or if you're like, hey, realistically, I'm not gonna take this med, tell me, so we can adjust things, so we can make things more as beneficial as possible for you. So tailoring a treatment plan to that person. That's my little soapbox thing, but that's a really important thing, is that my patients are involved in their care.
And it's important, and it's okay to break up with your therapist if it doesn't work for you.
It is. Another, I love my analogies. I'm sorry, I used like a bunch of them. But another analogy I used to, like, say you had a bad experience with a mental health provider in the past. Don't let that define all of mental health for you. So my analogy here, a car wash, right? If you go get a car wash and they do a sucky job, are you just never going to get your car washed again? Probably not. You'll just probably go elsewhere. Yeah. Also, when you get your car washed, you kind of have to specify, what would you like done? Would you like the interiors clean? Would you like the exterior? What are we doing today? Kind of help guide it, so we can help us help you, you know? Yeah. So that's something I really kind of put out there, because I don't want like one single bad experience to kind of, you know, ruin the entire mental health field for that person.
It just might not be the right
fit. Might not be the right fit. And that's okay. Because, you know, like you said, and like, we're people too. So we're probably not going to vibe with everybody out there, and they're not going to vibe with us. We don't, you know, and that's, you know, up to the person. And if the fit isn't right, then that's okay.
I got really lucky.
Okay, so your last question.
Totally. So my last question is, what advice do you wish you had yourself before you turned 30 about mental health?
I want to say that being in my 30s now, I'm a lot more comfortable expressing who I am without, you know, kind of without apology of it. So I'm a lot less hesitant about worrying what people would think about me, whatever. And I know that sounds very cliche.
It's not at all. I feel like that's the vibe of being 30.
It really is. Yeah. I freaking love 30. Like, what I find is, like, the more yourself you are, like, those people who are gonna be like-minded are gonna come to you. Like, you guys are we're gonna just naturally find the individuals who also share our same interests. So I'd rather not pretend I'm into something and be miserable with this, when I could just, like, you know, like, say, hey, this is actually who I am, and find the people who are into the same hobbies, interests, things like that I am. So I think that's something that it took me like literally till a little bit like, I think in my 30s, I want to say like literally 31, maybe the end of 30, to kind of really start accepting. But if I could go back in time, I think that's what I tell myself, is to really just like, it's not so cliche coming, but like, you know, like stop giving a crap, like be yourself, find what you like now, stop trying to conform to the other stuff. So,
and I love that so much, because I feel like a lot of times it's so cliche, but at the same time, it needs to be said over and over and over again, because people,
I think it's cliche for a reason, you know? It's true, but you know, obviously when we're 16, we're not gonna want to listen to like, no.
But when you're 30, it's like you could really see who you are. You could like enjoy the things you want to enjoy without being really like nervous about it. You can meet people, like you said, that are into the same things you're into.
I think the popularity thing isn't as important when you get older, because
it's more authenticity. And I mentioned this with Kelly Bennett, where we talked about being authentically you. Like in your 30s, you are way more authentic, and you just don't give a shit about what other people say. And like going to get medical help, going to therapy, all this stuff leads into who you will be in the next phase of your life. And why waste your life being so, you know, hurt all the time, being so depressed all the time, being so like, why go through all of that when you can enjoy the best years of your life by just being who you are and liking the things you like.
I think that's I like that you put it that way. I think that's a great way to think of things, and like honestly just the being authentically you kind of thing. I really like that, you know, we've like, I can't, you know, speak for everybody. I've spent so much of my like younger years, teen years, trying to get certain people to like me. Who, like at the end of the day, like, fuck it. Like they're like, I'm sorry, but like I'm so much happier now with the, you know, like,
you'll find you
find the people. You find your people. Exactly. That's what it is. And whether, you know, it doesn't matter now. Like the popularity thing, like I really, that does not matter when you're older. And like, I know that's the hardest thing to be said for anybody in like high school, middle school, because that's basically what we're like, you know, taught. But like, I feel like even those people who wanted to be popular or whatever, who were popular, were they necessarily happy if their hobbies didn't align with the other popular people's hobbies? Not necessarily, when they could have just been doing something else that was maybe not as popular, but they actually had decent friends out of it. So,
Thank you so much for your wisdom, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
We talked about this, like, you are one of the people that helped me kind of get my podcast up off the ground. So you're like, you gotta do it. It kind of gave me the motivation to. And so now we're here about 20 episodes in. And
I know. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
But remember, you took the steps to do it, right? I did not do that. You did that. So
thank you.
Yeah, definitely commend yourself on that, because that's something that, you're doing the work.
Thank you. And I just appreciate having you here and being on my podcast and just opening up about your journey and everything. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great. It was really fun.
Hey friends, thank you for listening to today's episode. Please take a moment to follow and review this podcast so it could reach others. Also, if you leave a review, I'll be sharing your review in the next episode. Lastly, if you want to be part of this growing podcast, chat about your life, your profession, passions, or if you have advice that you wish you had at 30, please sign up at the link provided in the show notes. I would love to have you as a guest on the show. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.